The desert wind clawed at the edge of Djibouti Air Base, a dry heat that wrapped around everything like a persistent ghost. Inside Hangar 12, the smell of jet fuel mixed with dust and tension. Lieutenant Commander Maya Rourke paced beside her A-18 Hornet, call sign Torch, helmet under her arm, waiting for the final briefing that would greenlight their strike. She glanced at her wingman, Lieutenant Jake Pony Harris, leaning against a tool rack, chewing a protein bar like it was his last meal on Earth. "Don't look so relaxed," she muttered. He smirked. "Relaxed is how I fly, straight." Rourke rolled her eyes but didn't argue. There was no room for nerves when you were about to flatten a mountain. The mission was clear. Precision strike on a weapons depot hidden deep in the Somali highlands, allegedly converted by Houthi rebels into a long-range drone facility. Intel from a low-orbit satellite flagged unusual EM patterns, too clean, too symmetrical, but command had brushed it off. Too much static from sandstorms, they said. Old Russian gear buried under there, maybe. Whatever it was, they wanted it gone. Rear Admiral Colson had delivered the target coordinates like he was reading off a grocery list. No fanfare, no questions. Just blow it off the map. As Rourke climbed into the cockpit, her hands moved with practiced precision over the control surfaces. Her HUD flickered to life, green characters scrolling across the glass. Her fighter responded like it always did, with power, purpose, and lethal grace. "Eagle Flight, you are cleared for takeoff. Runway 29er, Godspeed." The words crackled through the headset, crisp against the low thrum of the turbine. As the jet screamed down the runway, lifting into the red-tinged African sky, Rourke felt the familiar tightening in her chest. Not fear, not exactly. Anticipation. A quiet wariness that came from years of trusting her instincts that now whispered something was off. "Pony, talk to me," she said as they approached the Somali airspace boundary. "I've got thermal reads, but it's weird," Harris replied. "There's no power output consistent with drone construction, no heat plumes, no exhaust, just grid patterns in the dirt, like someone's laying down solar panels underground." She adjusted her radar overlay. The data looked sterile, cold, artificial in a way that didn't fit the rugged terrain. She zoomed in and saw what he meant. The mountain wasn't just a geological rise, it was carved. A dome, not eroded, but manufactured. There was no way rebels had done this, but her orders were orders. "Eagle Flight, engage primary target, coordinates confirmed." She hesitated, just a blink. Then her thumb pressed the release. 2 precision-guided bombs detached, slicing through the sky toward the mountain. Pony followed a second later. The world below erupted. But not like any explosion she'd seen. The mountain didn't collapse. It disintegrated, layers peeling back in geometric spirals as if the earth itself was uncoiling. Dust burst outward in a rolling shockwave, but then came the light. A pulse of blinding white surged from the crater, and every system in her cockpit went dead for half a second. Enough time for her heart to seize. "Pony, do you copy?" No response. Then static, followed by a gasp. "Torch, I think we hit something alive." She glanced down. The cameras were flickering back online, but what they showed made her grip tighten. The crater glowed, not with fire, but with something moving, shifting plates of metal and crystal, lifting from the depths like the petals of a mechanical flower blooming in reverse. Lines of radiant blue traced patterns across the surface, pulsing like veins. "Jesus," she breathed, "that's not a weapons factory." "Whatever it is," Pony said, voice shaking. "It just turned on." They pulled into a circling climb, maintaining visual while relaying emergency footage back to base. No response from HQ, not yet, just open channels and rising static. Something was jamming their long-range comms, subtly, surgically. Then a tone beeped in her helmet, an alert not meant for aircraft, a message, but it wasn't in English. It wasn't in any language. It was a sound, simple, harmonic, resonant, and it wasn't just in her ears. It vibrated in her bones. "Pony, are you—" "I heard it too," he said quickly. "It's in the instruments. It's everywhere." She looked again at the crater. The glowing construct began to rotate. Not wildly, not chaotically. With purpose, with design. Something buried in that mountain had been dormant. Now it was awake. She pulled back, setting a course for a wider loop. "We need to get back. Now this is bigger than anything we've trained for." Pony didn't argue. For once, even his bravado had vanished. As they turned toward the horizon, the sun dipped low, casting long shadows across the desert. Behind them, in the broken earth, the alien machine rose slowly, silent, watchful, and terrifying in its symmetry. And above it, for the first time in 1,000 years, a faint blue light pulsed upward, straight into space. A storm of questions followed them back to base, but answers were few. Rear Admiral Coulson's face was pale as he replayed the strike footage in the war room, his composure thinning with every frame of the alien structure blooming from the wreckage. Around the table, military analysts, scientists, and intelligence officers tossed theories like grenades, bioweapon, extraterrestrial defense grid, long-dormant tech from Earth's past. No one had anything concrete, and no one wanted to say the word that hung heavy in the room: contact. Lieutenant Commander Rourke stood at the back of the room, arms crossed, jaw tight. She had reviewed the footage a dozen times on her own. The crystalline structure, those perfect curves and glowing veins, they weren't just advanced. They were intentional, designed, intelligent. And the harmonic signal that had poured through her cockpit wasn't random. Next to her, Lieutenant Harris tapped his fingers nervously against his thigh. "We just poked something ancient in the ribs," he muttered under his breath. "And it's stretching." Later that afternoon, the Pentagon dispatched an envoy from its Deep Anomaly Division. 3 scientists, 2 armed escorts, and a woman with icy gray eyes and credentials nobody challenged. Dr. Elena Graves, an exoarchaeologist once labeled a crackpot for her theories about non-terrestrial ruins hidden beneath Earth's surface, had now been granted full mission access. Her arrival changed the tone immediately. "You didn't bomb a weapons depot," she said without ceremony as she projected a satellite image of the crater onto the briefing screen. "You triggered a reactivation protocol. That construct wasn't built by the Houthis or any human hands." Coulson narrowed his eyes. "You're telling me we hit an alien facility buried in a Somali mountain?" "I'm telling you," she replied, unblinking. "You woke it up." Dr. Graves had data. Real-time readings from seismographs showing non-natural geometric tremors, a steady energy signature radiating outward, and now a pulsing frequency being detected in deep-sea monitoring stations across the Indian Ocean. The signal was spreading, not just through land, but through the planet's own magnetic web. Rourke studied the waveform as it traced across the digital map like veins in a living organism. "So, it's not just signaling into space, it's talking to the Earth itself." Graves nodded. "Or through it. If this structure is part of a network, we've only uncovered one node." Command ordered immediate reconnaissance. Rourke volunteered again, not because she was reckless, but because something about the signal pulled at her, like a whisper, unfinished. She had felt it before it even activated. That brief pause before the explosion, the uncanny symmetry. The mountain hadn't died. It had revealed its true shape. This time she flew lower, skimming the edge of the crater as sensor drones buzzed in formation behind her. The structure stood like a colossal heart, half submerged, pulsing softly with azure light. Its petals, if they could be called that, remained open. From above, it resembled a compass, perfectly aligned to magnetic north, each arm pointing toward some unseen horizon. "Picking up fluctuations," Harris called from his wing. "It's responding to us again." Her instruments flickered. Not like before, not disruptive, more like a handshake. On impulse, she activated the wideband channel and spoke aloud. "This is Lieutenant Commander Rourke. You have our attention. Who are you?" Static. Then a low, resonant tone filled her helmet. This one was deeper, more rhythmic. Beneath it, something else stirred. Symbols cascading across her heads-up display, glyphs her onboard computer couldn't decipher. Her heart pounded. It was language, not spoken, not written. Transmitted. Back at the base, Graves watched the live feed with narrowed eyes. "It's testing us, measuring cognitive response." Rourke could feel it too. The tone resonated inside her chest, not painful, but purposeful. A presence, watching. Then the structure shifted. A beam of light projected from its core, arcing into the clouds, and in its path, a brief holographic shape appeared, like a solar map. Dozens of dots, some glowing, some dim, one pulsed red at the center. Earth. Graves exhaled sharply. "It's broadcasting a location chain, a beacon trail. This isn't just an alert. It's a message home." The implications hit like a missile. If this was a beacon, and it was sending out a signal now, then whoever built it could be on their way, or already watching. Coulson's voice came over the comms, tight and low. "All strike wings, return to base. This situation is escalating beyond protocol." Rourke hesitated. The structure hadn't attacked. It had responded. Was it a warning, an invitation, or a test? As she turned her Hornet back toward the horizon, a final pulse rose from the crater, faster, clearer, and, in the core of her HUD, new symbols appeared. This time, her translator stuttered before flashing a crude interpretation in red block letters. "You have been noticed." Her breath caught. The sky darkened a fraction too fast. Far above them, satellites began to blink out, one by one. The silence in the comms was deafening. A low, metallic hum vibrated through the tarmac as the hangar doors groaned open, revealing a dawn sky veiled in strange color, hints of violet and amber streaked where clouds should have been. At the edge of the runway, Maya Rourke stood fully suited, helmet under one arm, her eyes fixed on the horizon. Behind her, a flurry of technicians scrambled to refit and rearm the squadron's jets, but the urgency felt ceremonial. Like warriors preparing for a battle they didn't fully understand. The previous night's signal, "You have been noticed," echoed like a mantra in her head. It wasn't a threat. It was a declaration. And no one on Earth knew what the response would be. Inside the briefing room, Graves moved with calculated intensity, overlaying satellite images, waveforms, and spectral data. The structure in the crater hadn't stopped sending signals. It had begun synchronizing with something above Earth's atmosphere. Over 30 satellites had dropped offline, not destroyed, disconnected, as if something larger had passed between them. "This isn't an attack in the conventional sense," Graves explained to Coulson, her tone razor-sharp. "It's a handshake protocol, a readiness check. Our strike initiated a sequence, and we're now part of a conversation that predates our civilization." Coulson remained stone-faced. "And what happens when the other party answers?" Graves didn't blink. "Then we'll find out if we've woken a god, or something worse." Rourke watched from the side, jaw clenched. She wasn't a philosopher or a diplomat. She was a pilot, trained to respond, not to speculate. But deep in her gut, she knew they couldn't simply wait. Later, as she sat in her cockpit, readying for a recon loop, her headset crackled with an encrypted override. "Torch, reroute to new coordinates. Solo mission. Package incoming." The data packet loaded into her systems. A relay drone had picked up something moving, descending through low orbit on a path directly aligned with the Somali beacon site. The object wasn't broadcasting any known transponder signal. It was falling slowly, guided, as if it belonged here. She throttled up and punched through the thinning clouds. Her altimeter ticked rapidly, the Hornet trembling under the weight of supersonic pressure. Then, in the silence above 60,000 feet, she saw it. The object wasn't large, no bigger than a gunship, but it shimmered, angular and translucent like light caught in motion. It hovered impossibly still, then rotated slightly, and a narrow stream of glyphs poured across Rourke's HUD. The same symbols, same structure, but this time followed by a human response code encrypted by our own systems. Graves's voice chimed in over a direct line. "It's syncing with our satellites now. Something in your flight systems is serving as a translator. It's integrating." Rourke's hands stayed on the controls, but the Hornet's own systems began auto-adjusting trajectory, gently, not hostile, guided. "Are we still flying under our own power?" she asked. "Yes, but we're not alone in the cockpit," Graves replied. The craft released a pulse, low, resonant, not audible but felt in her bones. Then her instruments all briefly shut down, and a singular symbol bloomed on the center screen, a circle bisected by a spiral. Then a human word beside it, convergence. She had no idea what it meant, but something changed. The structure in the crater responded immediately. From the depths of the earth, a column of light erupted straight into the sky. But it wasn't just light, it was data. Code, ancient, layered, recursive, not a signal for help, a relay. Part of a system booting up again after eons of slumber. Back at base, seismic alarms shrieked. Across the Indian Ocean, similar pulses were detected on submerged seafloor ridges. Something vast was connecting, reactivating. "Torch," Graves said, barely hiding the tremor in her voice. "You're not watching the beginning of an invasion. You're witnessing the reassembly of a forgotten infrastructure. This planet was a terminal, a relay, and we just flipped it back on." In the sky, the alien craft began descending slowly, like it recognized her. Not just the jet, her. She didn't know how she knew, but she did. It transmitted one final string of glyphs. Her visor translated it. "You are not the first, you will not be the last, but you have passed the threshold. Prepare." And then it vanished. Not in a flash, not in smoke. It simply folded into itself and was gone. The world was quiet again, but only for a moment. From deep space, sensors now detected movement. Objects shifting in trajectories long held dormant, aligning with Earth's new signal. No demands. Just an ancient, undeniable answer to a question humanity didn't know it had asked. As Rourke descended through the clouds, the Hornet cutting a clean path through twilight, she understood this wasn't the end of a mission. It was the opening line of something far greater, something cosmic, and Earth had just joined the conversation.